Today, I'm joined by Rowan Waller, the property pen. In fact, rather than introduce him, I'm going to hand you over to Rowan and let him introduce himself and his interesting property-related career. Rowan, thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Yes, I'm Rowan Waller. My business is called The Property Pen, and I provide written content services to estate agents and letting agents, so blogs or website copy or property particulars, that sort of thing. But I come from a background in a estate agency, which is, I think, there's a slight difference there, that I've got 20 years of experience in agency before I've then gone and embarked on the written content side, which actually in agency became my favourite part of the job by the end of it.
The idea behind No More Waffle is that we bring genuine experts in to have proper conversations about the property sector, from a consumer side and from an agency side. And Rowan, with 20 years experience and now writing copy for agents, perfect, high quality, no pressure, Rowan. So let's get straight into it. Start with our big leading question. What's the one truth about the property industry you think most people, especially the public, still don't understand, and why? And as a follow-up, why does it matter?
Good question. I think the truth is that people don't understand what estate agents actually are.
Okay.
And that's quite a wide answer.
It is.
But I think the interesting point in that is that often agents don't understand what they are either.
Okay.
So they don't always forget, the public and agents, they don't always forget what they are, but they're prone to forget at key moments what the actual job is, what's actually being done, and what the responsibilities are. And agents get confused as well. So ultimately, I think that estate agency really is a project management role.
Okay.
I think that's the job. So agents have a job of realizing a project for clients, right? So somebody wants to, well, literally move from A to B, say, and then the estate agent's job is to help them do that. But they get caught up, and the public really get caught up in whether it's advertising, whether it's marketing. Those two things are different, but one's related to the other. And actually, the job doesn't stop there. Well, I don't think it should stop there. There's some arguments that actually estate agents shouldn't be doing sales progression, which I think is mad, actually. But really, if a client wants to move home, the agent, a good agent, would normally be there from start to finish, and there are just various different roles within that whole process, from the original listing right through to the key handover, that could be taken on by the same person all the way through, and this sort of bespoke concierge service that we're seeing come through, or it could be handled by a whole sort of regime of different people within that firm, as long as everybody knows what their roles are and it's handled properly. So that's my long-winded answer to what is actually a complex question.
And so it's interesting. In 20 years, I've never heard anyone say that. Not that I ask this question every day for the last 20 years, but why is it? Okay, actually, no. Let me start with, what do agents think they are? You mentioned advertising and marketing.
So I think, because when I was in agency, I used to say the same thing. So agents think they're marketeers or marketeurs. So there's an argument as well whether it's marketeer or marketeur. But and that's what they will say, is that, our job is marketing. It's not advertising, it's marketing, and it's marketing a property. But ultimately, that's only half the job. That gets the property as far as, for example, being sole subject to contract. And I know technically in terms and conditions it says that control of sale passes to solicitors at that stage, and we'll keep a watching brief or whatever it is in these T's and C's that have been copied and pasted for the last 50 years of estate agency, right? But the point is that the client wants to move home. So that's where I've sort of come round to, because a lot of the content you see out there, a lot of the content that engages is often about how it's a full rounded service, and people are taking this sort of baby and they're moving it all the way through. So they're literally getting to the stage, and it's all about the end result. The end result, people moving home and being happy with the outcome, with the money in their back pocket at the end of it, whatever it might be. But it's all being handled by the estate agent. So I think it matters, because when people lose sight of that, then you get these arguments about about fee, for example, about the job not being done properly, or that this write-up wasn't good enough or whatever it might be. But actually, the end result is what matters. It's about getting to that end stage and whether or not the company that's taken on this contract has fulfilled that role. And at that point, they normally get paid. Mostly, it's a no sale, no fee service. So that's why I think it matters to think of it in those terms, because actually, it's paid on completion. It's not paid on sole subject to contract, and therefore marketing is only getting you halfway along.
So it's interesting. When I joined the profession, call it a profession, I thought of and to an extent I still do, think of us as salespeople. Mm-hmm. But you haven't mentioned the word sales once.
Well, no. And I'm not sure that it is a sales job. In fact, I would go as far as to say the only sales job in agency is listing. Mm-hmm. So listing is a sales job because you're winning over the customer, you're getting them to sign that contract. But the house itself is it will sell by, one way or another, it will find a buyer. Whether you as a salesperson should have any influence over that. In fact, arguably there should be no influence over that. The way that the regulation of the industry is going and the criticism of the industry goes, is that actually selling something to somebody who doesn't want to buy is that's the dangerous game that you get into when you start to consider yourself a salesperson, and that the sale is what matters.
So we used to say that for the Fine and Country business, so we had our old business, which was sort of mass market agency, and our bread and butter sales properties were about £450,000 to £500,000. Mm-hmm. That represented maybe a 3-bed terrace or a new 2-bed apartment, and we used to say that either they want to buy it or they don't. You're not going to convince someone to part with £500,000. We're in the Fine and Country business with £1 million or whatever it might be. The buyer will choose whether they want to buy or not. But in our lettings side, going back a few years when the lettings market wasn't as crazy as it is now, it's where we put the people that had the most in terms of sales skills. Or maybe actually, I think the right way to describe it is the people that enjoyed sales the most. Because if you like it, you're going to be good at it. If you're going to be good at it, you're going to get results and, self-perpetuating. And so the lettings market in West London used to work in this way. I'm not sure anymore. We're not in lettings anymore. But from what I see in sort of general commentary, property comes on, someone's going to take it. That's what it was. We would work with a large portfolio of stock, and a prospective tenant would come out and view of us and view of a whole load of agents. And the best salespeople would ensure that if they were interested in that property, they were going to take that property. And they were going to progress it in a timely manner. Mm-hmm. But where we used to, and where I still think great salespeople add value, is the negotiation. Yeah. So I don't believe, and I agree with you, that the property will eventually, if it's marketed correctly and it's priced correctly, it will sell itself to an extent. But the great salesperson, I think, maximises that return. So let's say, as an argument, just for simple numbers, the property is worth £100,000. A great salesperson will ensure that £100,000 is achieved, as opposed to maybe underselling it or allowing a prospective buyer to make a justification for a lower offer. Maybe a great salesperson is going to pull in the data and be able to justify the correct price. So that's why I think there's still a place for sales in what we do.
I agree, except I think the role of the sale is being taken away from the industry in the way that this regulation is coming in. So I think that not that Roper is in, but the talk of it and the talk of licensing agents and the sort of the guidelines that they should follow. I think that the onus seems to be on not pushing people beyond a comfort zone. Mm-hmm. And there's an argument that you shouldn't, especially when prices are as high as they are. So I think that it's more about, I don't want to say administration, but effectively, I think the role of a good estate agent is almost the administration of a sale. So you're matching the right buyer to the right house. Mm-hmm. And don't get me wrong, I think negotiating is definitely part of it. But whether it's a salesperson's role or not, I think it's understanding that there's still some room. It's understanding that actually these people are still comfortable to go up. They're just trying not to. Mm-hmm. That, and then trying to entice that extra £10,000 or £15,000 out of them on behalf of the seller, who ultimately is the client. Mm-hmm. I can see that. I understand that there is some salesmanship there, or there's some negotiation ability there. But whether or not it's a sales job or not, I think I disagree. I think it's more of a management job. I think it's more of a process, and people have to be able to handle all of these moving parts in a process to get the best result. And
It's interesting. I mean, genuinely, never heard it described in this way, but it's really got me thinking. Yeah, my grey matter is fully engaged right now, because you'll probably remember this for a period of time. You and I started, I think, in agency roughly the same time, and when we first started, it was a salesperson's job. It was described as working in sales, and everything's all sales. I mean, it's a sales job. I worked in hospitality. Decided I would try sales, and it was either cars or property, and I fell into property. Just they gave me the job before the car company did, and it was sales. And then we transitioned, and you've already mentioned it, marketeer. We sort of, as an industry, decided that we don't like the term sales. We don't want to be salespeople anymore. We want to be marketeers.
Yeah.
And I think we've transitioned into that. And actually, looking at where we are now, I've never heard it called project manager, but you mentioned earlier about the agents that offer a bespoke service sort of from start to finish, maybe the personal agent brand style. Maybe that's what that agent is. They don't want to say it necessarily, but they're project managers.
Yeah, but I think that they are just a representative of an estate agency firm. They're just doing all the roles. You know, it's like the E-Myth, isn't it? They just if they've put themselves into the organisational flowchart, and they've just they occupy all positions, apart from maybe they outsource a photography or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
So, and that's part of management as well. So I just think project management is one term for it, but it could be, it's fulfilment. It's whatever it is. It's this realisation of the end goal, and that's what I think the job is. The job is actually moving somebody. It's not advertising a house. It's not.
What do you think the consumer thinks our job is?
Well, that's a good question. And this is. So I think they think this, but they only think of it in stages. So they look at what the next bit is. So when you're sitting on the sofa and you're trying to negotiate your fee over other agents, they're meeting several agents, and everybody's talking about price and fee basically. And at that point, it's all about the advert. So the agent's talking about the advertising, and the client's thinking about the advertising, and they're not necessarily paying enough attention to everything else that's going to go on for what is probably a 6-month process of living with each other and managing this through. So they're looking at how soon can we get our advert done? What does it look like? It's professional photography, and it's going to be like this, and we're going to do a video, and we're going to do all of these things, and that's what the client's thinking about at that stage. So it's somewhere between advertising and marketing, but it's more of a marketing conversation that people are having. And so these are the things that we're going to do to expose your property to the market and make sure that we find a buyer and we get the best price out of it. But how we get the best price out of it isn't really about how good the advert is. How we get the best price out of it are the things that you're talking about. It's these human skills that people have to actually do better. So obviously, I mean, Chris Watkin, everybody knows, and there was a post out the other day about I can't remember exactly how he worded it, but it was about estate agents thinking that they've sold a house, and he said, "Correction, Rightmove sold this house." Right?
Yeah, I saw it.
And he makes a good point, except that we argue about this all the time. If we try and argue as an industry, it's not Rightmove selling, but ultimately that is probably where people are seeing it, whether it's Rightmove or Zoopla, but it's a portal, and they're seeing the advert, and the advert probably looks much the same as it would have done if any other agent had got that listing, because most agents are now outsourcing this job to a firm. So we talk about ourselves as marketeers, but all we're really doing is, I say we as if I'm still an estate agent, but we're really just packaging up something and offering it to a client as a bundle, so that they don't have to go and get photographs done themselves, for example. All we're doing is get this instruction, then we log on to Niche or whatever it is, and we put the address in and put their contact details in, and then we kind of leave it. And 5 days later, we expect that we'll hear that they've been in touch and they've booked this photo session in, and we're going to get some nice edited photos from an outsourced property marketing firm. Right, so we're not even doing the marketing. The actual collateral is being outsourced most of the time, or at least often.
Yeah.
And it looks great, right? So it should look like this. It looks really, really good. Then when this advert's getting put together, it's getting put on Rightmove, and therefore it doesn't matter if it was agent A or B or C. It's probably going to be much the same, right? So there's little things that could be different. Some agents are doing videos, some agents are doing 360 tours. These are little differences. But ultimately, it's appearing on a portal, and it's being exposed to this wide audience of potential buyers, and then we get these inbound calls. This is where I think marketing and advertising becomes a conversation, because marketing is about more than just that advert. Marketing is about how do you actually take it to the market. That's one element. Another element is getting your negs to go through their database and actually do some marketing, right? So your market is there in this CRM.
Yeah.
You should be calling these people because you've got something that you can market to them, which is this property. Right, that's a marketing job, and it's maybe a sales job, right? Booking a viewing, that's a sales job as well. Or there's some sales skill involved in getting the viewing booked. The point is that these buyers are then able to make a decision to go and buy this house based on what they're seeing, what these estate agents have presented, and it's a presentation job. It's about, I guess, how the advert's written, how the photos look, how the viewing might have been conducted. But ultimately, Rightmove, as this is what Chris Watkin's saying, it's Rightmove that's then done that job. So if we then start thinking about that, and I'm not sure that agents want to think about it like that, it's what is the differentiator? What makes it? What should be this choice that agents are presenting this person to this seller of a home when they're sitting on the sofa, that makes that person say, okay, well actually I prefer what you're going to do for me, because the advert, roughly speaking, is going to look the same. And this is what I mean. So when potential clients are thinking about what the advert looks like, it actually devalues this whole process, because that ultimately these agents are all going to go and spend the same 300, 400 quid on getting to this stage where there's an advert on Rightmove. You know, the subscription fees or whatever is all the same. So every agent's paying that as well. But ultimately, when we're then saying, well, I'm going to charge you 1% plus VAT for that, and there's another agent saying, well, I'll charge 1.5% plus VAT, another saying 2% plus VAT, it's very hard for a client to really see what the difference is in this service proposition, and therefore it has to be a service proposition. It has to be more than just a marketing proposition, because realistically, unless somebody really screws up a bit of advertising copy, and a lot of people are doing it on AI now anyway, so it all kind of does sort of feel a little bit homogenous and the same, then it's going to kind of probably get the same kind of inbound results. So it's everything beyond the inbound results you're getting from an advert that's the value differentiator in this service, and that's why it becomes more of a project management role or a fulfillment role that the estate agent's got to do for them to justify the fee, and you know, and be someone that the client can then go and recommend afterwards.
So the question was, what does the consumer think we are? Mm-hmm. You think based on the initial conversation, initial meeting, it's advertising and marketing. That's what they believe our role is.
Yes.
Whether they correctly use advertising or marketing or both, in general, it's about they believe our job is to market their home, attract buyers.
Yes.
Chris Watkins believes Rightmove is selling homes.
Well, I don't know whether he believes it or not. I think there's a degree. He's posted that's what happens, but
yeah,
it's a valid point to make, though, and I think it's something that I remember being an agency. It wasn't said so much by the time I left, but when I became a lister in 2005 or whatever it was, and I'd go out and I'd have these conversations with people, the question they would always ask is, do you put us on Rightmove? So it was what they want. It's what they wanted. It's where they expected their house was going to sell. I think the only reason people weren't asking it by 2025 rather than 2005 is because everybody just expected we're going to be on Rightmove. You know, you can't not be on Rightmove. Mm-hmm. It's, you know, almost treat Rightmove like an overhead.
Well, so Rightmove is now a given, and so if the advertising and marketing in the round is going to feel very similar based on your agency choice. Obviously, this is not every business. There are niche businesses that can do things a different way. You're going to present it in a different way. You're going to produce different styles of marketing. Then all the value comes in what happens after that.
What happens after? Now, I mean, this is what you've said is interesting, because you are seeing some different routes of advertising, so different ways to present these houses. So it's no longer the get into a corner as far as you can and take a wide angle shot anymore. It doesn't have to be. A marketing video isn't necessarily a sort of a video tour with somebody kind of, you know, taking around and doing room by room and saying what's in it and which way the window faces and all that. So you're seeing a lot of property marketing videos that are nice and choppy and very Instagram, you know, Instagrammable, very lifestyle led, and actually you're not necessarily seeing even all the rooms. You're just seeing some snapshots of the rooms, and it just makes people think, oh yeah, that's piqued my interest. I might make an inquiry about this house. So there are definitely different ways that this can be done. And I suppose that the agent hopefully has got some creative input into that. So they're going to, you know what, I want you to come and do some property, because I don't know, there's very few agents that are doing it all in-house. There are some that are doing it in-house, which is that's kind of cool. And I think that's a USP when they are. But most agents are outsourcing this. So they're probably having to have some kind of conversation with this marketing company, say, look, I want you to do this marketing for us, but I want it to look like this. I want it to, and maybe they've got a mood board or some examples of others, and they go, I want it to, can you do this for me? And they say yes. So they're making some choices about what the marketing looks like, but ultimately it's going to probably be a fairly static advert on a portal with static photographs of rooms and some property copy that gets the viewing. That's probably how people are going to come through to view it, rather than go, oh yes, I'm definitely going to book a viewing on the strength of that. They might think, oh yeah, that's interesting, I'll go and look at the advert, but the advert is still going to be the static advert that they're going to go and see on a portal.
I think so. When we talk about what Chris Watkins posted, the king of clickbait. Yeah, of course. He's trying to spark a conversation, and good for him, because he's created a lot of good conversation in the industry. And where I can guess where the agent comments came back, and they would be things like the best agents know their buyers inside out. They know their database. They have varied pricing strategies to achieve a better result than your average guide price, maybe. And I would argue that they're right. Those comments do. That great agents find a way to outperform, because my next comment is going to be, if everyone's advert looks the same, but certain agents get this result and certain agents get that result. Sorry if you're listening, I just put my arm in the air and my arm down. Let me just explain what I was trying to visually explain. That some agents are going to get great results, and some agents are going to get very average results, and some agents are going to get very poor results. If all their adverts look the same, then I'm thinking that maybe we are a sales business, because the sales skills are probably what's going to get the better, average or worse results.
Or a marketing business, because it's not necessarily a sale that has been achieved to get the viewing, apart from, unless you say that viewing is a sales role. Like booking the viewing, there's some element of you've got to kind of sell this house to somebody so that they might come along and
it's interesting.
view.
Yeah.
But I think that is the difference, is that if your phones aren't ringing, do you get on the phone and call these people and go, look, I've got this, I know you're after a 3-bedroom semi that's got 2 bathrooms and ideally a south-facing garden. Well, I've got this one that's just come on the market and it's in your price range. The garden's southwest, but would that be okay? I've got a couple of people viewing it on Saturday. I'd like to squeeze you in if I can. There's some proactive, so it's about the proactive nature of a estate agency and whether there is enough proactivity still going on in agency anymore. And I think that's where agents set themselves apart, is what they do beyond the advert. And I think that's where I think agents get it wrong as well quite often, is because they're thinking about visually how impressive they look when they create this marketing material. And it does look great, and it gets good engagement, and people like it on Instagram, and their clicks go up, and the videos they produce as well. So there was and it's also why agents do these videos. And I think this is another really, really good topic. And I saw a great one. I feel like I'd be picking on her, but I don't mean to be picking on her, right? But Steph Bass she posted a really great video within the last couple of days, maybe even today, and it was about a garden bar. She said, I love a garden bar, but what about a garden pub? And it was this brilliant video about this, clearly a pub. Okay. That someone's built in their garden, like a man shed or whatever. Yeah. You can't say man shed, you know what I mean? Like one of these, timber built, and it's got a proper bar in, it's got a pool table in. Okay. It was a really cracking video of this pub. Yeah. And I've got absolutely no doubt the engagement's massive on that. Absolutely no doubt, because I would like that. But I don't know where that property is. I don't know what price it is. There was no visual of that house that this garden pub sits in. So it's a great video, it's potentially a great marketing video, but what is it marketing? Because it actually probably isn't marketing that house, and it's not probably going to be responsible for the sale of that house ultimately. But what it has marketed is Steph, and it's marketed potentially TA UK, and that's all part of our job as well. So we have to bear this in mind as agents when we're doing this stuff. I think we have to kind of be honest, but half the time what we're doing it for is to attract new clients who go, cool, yeah, when I sell my house, I really want you to do something like that for, you know, for me. Because it was a great video, but actually the sales benefit of that video in terms of actually getting that job done, and I really hope I'm not speaking out of turn, because I don't mean it in an offensive way. It was a great video, but ultimately it wasn't anything that's probably going to lead to the sale of that house.
So yeah,
there's a small chance it might, but
so it's a great video, but it's not necessarily an advertisement for the property that's in the video.
But that doesn't mean it's not an advertisement for TA UK or for Steph as a self-employed estate agent or whatever it might be. Well, the marketing service clearly is really good, and their ability to put this cool video together, you know, you can see that as a customer potentially, but as a buyer, unless you're, I mean, you know, I've got no idea where that house is. So how many people are going to be calling, unless she's got a very specific location, it's going to be, you know, it's going to be around there. But how many people might call, go, you know, I've always wanted a pub in my garden. Whereabouts is this, and how much does it cost? Just don't know if people are going to go to that length to make that. You know,
I think you're right. Look, I think, funnily enough, on the last episode, speaking to Jackie, I talked about how we regard estate agency as 3 core elements. The first is the lead generation element. So as an estate agency, your job is to attract new clients, to win over new clients, and to try and list their home and you know, bring them to market. And I would imagine that piece of content does the most benefit to Steph in that area. It's attractive, it's eye-catching, it's attention-grabbing, and it makes her look good.
And it's really, really different. And that matters, and that's why
it does. And
that's why it's a good video, and I liked it. And that's, so I'm not really disparaging. This isn't. I'm not disparaging the video, but what I'm saying is it really part of the toolkit of an estate agent when the estate agent's job is to sell a house?
Well, I think so. I haven't seen the video. But I know Steph pretty well, and I'm pretty sure I know her process, is that she'll spend time at a property and create advertising content around that, and then also maybe cut some of that up and turn it into some brand awareness content for her. So I think it's probably clever marketing that she's ticking 2 boxes. She's ticking the front-end lead generation, let people know I exist, make sure they know I'm wonderful, but also element 2 in our business is once you list a home, you need to get it to sold subject to contract. And that's about advertising, that's about marketing to your database, and negotiation to get it agreed. Then section 3, which never gets talked about, and you know what's really, really interesting from project management perspective, for me is the most important piece, is the we're under offer, can we get you to exchange and completion? That's when, you know, from a sales perspective, we talk about different pitches that are important to different consumer groups. So you know, some people will have an aspirational price point in mind, and that's most important for them. They just want to get the most money. Others will have had a bad experience. They maybe had a sale fall through, or they're very nervous about the process. They're looking for peace of mind. And so with those people, we'll always talk about the back end, because we have a sales progressor and we take it really seriously. And our average time from under offer to exchange is about 9 weeks, which is there's no getting around it. That's a good metric. And so from a project management perspective, if you chunk it up like that, I mean, this project management piece is going to find its way into my new training system with the guys, because I quite like it. It makes complete sense. But on that particular piece of content that Steph's created, you're right. It falls into section 1, but I bet it was part of a bigger piece that also encompassed section 2.
And I've got no doubt it was. And actually, it could be part of the marketing piece as well. If you have got agents who are calling that database and going, look, I've got this amazing house, and it's got this amazing pub down in its garden that the owners have built. Here's a link just to have a, you know, this will blow your mind. And then if you want to come and view it, then give me a call. So it could be part of an overall sales strategy as well. But what I think where I was really going is that agents are becoming content creators, and we've got to be now in this modern way of marketing that goes beyond just what this, you know, what the old-fashioned role of an estate agent was 30, 40 years ago.
I think when I first got into estate agency, and for years actually, you had a database of buyers, and you would post adverts, portals, various places, and they would generate new buyers or prospective buyers, and you would. We would call it working the buyers. So you'd work the database, you'd call through. In the good old days, you'd call 80 to 100 every day, speak to as many as you could, keep them updated on what's coming on, what's on right now, feedback on what they looked at last week, all the usual bits and pieces. And I say usual bits and pieces, maybe it's not the usual anymore, and it was the usual. It was certainly how I was raised in a estate agency. back then it was what we now regard as active buyers. So they're in the market, they want to buy. Maybe there's a reason, so death, divorce, the usuals, or maybe it's just time. They just want to be fine. There's no real reason, but they're active buyers. What we found in our business now is there's a secondary market, and we call them passive buyers. And so, whilst I appreciate we work in the sort of, I hate to use the term luxury end of the market. I never use that. I don't even I've just said that on a podcast. It's not the luxury end of the market. It's the higher price point. There are probably more passive buyers in that market because they are there's a bit more cash knocking around, and they're not necessarily purchasing out of need, more a bit of want. So as a business, we market to two different types of actual prospective buyers. You've got the active, and we'll work the database, and that will be through the various types of communication, and we'll advertise to bring in new buyers. But we use things like, as you mentioned, Instagram. We use Instagram to attract people that are not necessarily in the market, but if they see something they like, wow, let's have a look.
Yeah, it might
trigger something.
Trigger a conversation.
Yeah, and so I think, the world has changed. It's so extreme versus 20 years ago versus where we are now. And I think the fact that in this question you've identified that we need to recategorize ourselves is such an interesting observation. I'm going to go back to the second part of the question that I asked you about what the consumer thinks we are. So at day one, they think we're about advertising and marketing, and that's how they're going to select their agent. What do you think on completion day? How would they describe us?
Well, the Google reviews will tell you, right? So, and I think that's.
Let's keep it clean.
But that's why it matters as well, because that was the second part of the question: is why does it matter? And it matters because the physical pound coins that agents spend on the job isn't huge compared to what the ultimate reward is, right? So if you look at what the photos would cost, 300, 400 quid, a video maybe another 300, 400 quid, maybe 1,500 quid, okay, they can be. But let's say it's cost 2,000, £2,500 max, or maybe 500, 600 pounds at the sort of the lower end, to get the house to the stage where buyers are negotiating sales. If a client thinks that's the value, then they're not going to see the value in even a 1% fee or a 1.5% fee or a 2.5% fee, right? Because it's such an extraordinary difference between what the cost of getting to that point is and what this result is. So for a client to feel happy about spending, let's say, 10 grand on something that's cost the agent, in theory, in pound notes, £2,000 to get to, they've got to be happy that they've spent an extra £8,000 on that, and it's therefore it's about how this process has made them feel, how de-stressed have they been during that process, not distressed but de-stressed.
Yeah.
How well were any objections handled, how smooth was the viewing process in the first place, were they inconvenienced, were they having to kind of shift out the house at 6 o'clock in the evening, multiple days a week, when they're trying to get dinner ready. So it's all of these things that become part of this overall experience. A good agent needs to understand what the pressure points are for a client so that they can manage around that as well. If you're dealing with a family that's got young children, you probably shouldn't be calling and saying, is it okay to come around and do a viewing at 7 o'clock on Tuesday? Because you should know that that's going to be maybe bedtime, if not it's going to be bath time, or certainly dinner time, with a family. So all of these things actually matter to a client. They just might not realise it matters at this stage where they're going, right, I need to sell my house. What do you think you can sell it for? And how quickly can I move? And what are you going to charge me? And that's because that tends to be the problem, is that's the position that clients come at it from. And a lot of agents are thinking about this, but a lot of agents are trying to deal with those. Those are the questions they're trying to deal with. Those are the answers they're trying to give. But what they need to be trying to do is educate the market that there's a lot more to it than this. This is part of it. This is part of my job is this. But actually the ultimate goal is that you move house in a smooth and managed way in the time period that you want it to, and that you come out of it with enough money from this sale that you can make this onward move that you want to. That's the job. So these are the ways that we're going to make this happen. And that's why we're going to charge you £10,000.
This is very, very interesting, because I know that there's a huge chunk of agents that I'm close with, connected to, that if I ask them the same job, what's the job of an agent? They would say to achieve the most amount of money for our client in the shortest possible time. Like it's like a carbon copy. I can see the agents right now, the ones that would say that. Whereas your job, you're saying the job is to help people move in as smooth a way as possible.
In the way that matters
That fits to them.
Right. So maybe people do want the most amount of money in the shortest time possible, but they probably don't. Ultimately, it probably doesn't matter if they've sold for 500,000 or 490,000 if they've moved to the right house, if they've got to the right school catchment, if they've managed to do it by October rather than January, because now they got enough time that they can sort everything out before they get their Christmas decorations up and enjoy their first Christmas in their new home. So all of these things matter to a human being. The point is that every human being is different. So I think a decent agent has these conversations, or is savvy enough and experienced enough to kind of be able to start to compartmentalize these different types of seller to go, okay, this is the sort of approach we're going to need to do for this client because. But it's the questions that matter. It's, what are people trying to achieve? And most clients think they want the most amount as well. That's what they think they want.
Absolutely, yeah.
That's what they think they want. But ultimately, they don't really. Nobody wants to get mugged. But ultimately, they want to move. They want to move house to the right house and not be in this house that they don't want to live in for any longer than they need to be.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think if the problem we've got. My view around your thought process, the problem is that the consumer will be adamant that it's about, the vast majority will be adamant about price. Your point is that actually that's probably not the number one priority for everyone. Everyone's got their own set of priorities. Price is definitely going to be up there for a lot of people, but it might be top 3 or top 5.
But the trouble is when it is about price, if you've got 3 agents and they all know that price is the key driver, then what do agents do?
Well, we discussed this in a recent episode, and because it's
very tempting. I'm not saying that all agents do, but I think it's, I don't want to go over content that I might go over later, but I think that the problem that one of the problems that agents have, that estate agents have, is that they're running businesses, right? So it's a commercial operation.
And because the rabbit hole you're about to disappear down, we're going to talk about later.
Okay, good.
So on that note. Whoa, look at that, that's clickbait. I've been spending so much time with Watkins. Look at that. So we're going to bring this episode to a close. We're going to see you next week. Clearly, you now know what we're going to be discussing next week, or maybe the week after. I'm trying to pull that back there. That's not done very well. I just want to say thanks for tuning in. Like, share, engage, all the good stuff. Follow, whatever it might be, wherever you're watching. Thank you, Rowan, for coming on.
You're welcome.
And we'll see you next week.